Hi, welcome to Weekly Physics and CSZC with Sir Danny. Today, we're going to discover the law of inertia, one of the famous laws created by Isaac Newton in Newtonian dynamics. If you are wondering, why does a certain object stand still or moves? The reason is because the object experiences inertia. But what do I mean by inertia? Inertia is the tendency of an object to maintain its state of being at rest or being at motion, particularly moving uniformly in a straight line. The law of inertia states that every object will remain in its state of motion, whether at rest or moving with a constant velocity in a straight line, unless that object is acted upon by a net force or an external force. If a certain object remains on a state of motion, whether it's at rest or moving in a constant velocity, then the object is in equilibrium. Equilibrium means all forces at both sides is equal to each other, that the net force is equal to zero. When the net force is equal to zero, then it is defined as a well-balanced object. The first condition of equilibrium is that for a body to be in a state of equilibrium, the sum of all forces in each component must also be equal to zero. The first situation in the law of inertia is when an object stays at rest. The reason why the object stays at rest is because this object is not experiencing any external force. But there are also forces acting on the object. And what are those forces? We have here an illustration of a certain object resting on a tabletop or resting on the ground. We have said that there are forces present or acting upon this object. And what are those forces? We have two forces in particular. From the center of the object, because of its mass and the reason why it is lying to the ground, pointing to the ground towards the center of the earth, we call it as the force of the object because of its weight, or the weight of the object. And the one that counters the weight, which is the normal force. What is the difference between the weight and the normal force is that the normal force is the force acting on the object that is perpendicular to the surface. Why is it called perpendicular? Because in the surface of the object, the force is intersecting to the surface, forming a 90-degree angle. While weight is the total amount of force that a certain object can have that is dependent on its mass. And we define weight mathematically as weight is equal to the mass of the object times the acceleration due to gravity with respect to the perspective of the object. If the object is on the surface of the earth, then the acceleration due to gravity is equal to 9.8 meters per second square. But if the object is located on the moon, then the weight is different because the acceleration due to gravity in the moon is 1/6 of the earth. So the weight differs in the inertial frame of reference. When we talk of inertial frame of reference, this is where all the laws of physics are applied. And hence, inertial frame of reference inertial frame of reference is any point in the surface of the Earth or in any surface where the object is experiencing inertia. We say inertia as a tendency of the object to be at rest or to be in a constant velocity. When the object accelerates, then that object is no longer in an inertial frame of reference. Assuming an object that flower vase has a mass of 1 kilogram, how did we say that the object lying on a surface has no forces acting on it? Or how are the forces being balanced? Because it is in an inertial frame of reference, is that because the weight of that object is equal to the mass times the acceleration due to gravity. If that object weighs 1 kilogram, we'll multiply it by the object's acceleration due to gravity, that will give us 9.8 meters kilogram meter per second square. But notice that this is weight. Since weight is a vector quantity and the acceleration due to gravity is pointed downwards, then our weight is equal to negative 9.8 kilograms meter per second, or Newton. Take note that we considered here in the weight as a vector because of its direction. Now, how are we going to find the second situation is that when an object is in motion. If an object is at motion, meaning either the object is moving in a constant velocity. If the object moves at a constant velocity, then the object is also considered to be at the inertial frame of reference. But when an object starts to accelerate or changes its velocity, then the object is now moving from an inertial frame of reference to a non-inertial frame of reference. So, the net force acting upon the object is not equal to 0. If the flower vase is at rest, meaning the velocity is equal to 0, but when I move the object is moving at a constant velocity, say for example, hence the object experiences 0 net force. But when I increase the object's velocity, then the object experiences a net force, meaning, or the object experiences an unbalanced forces acting upon the object. Hence, there is a net force acted upon the object when I move it on a different velocity from a constant velocity, a sudden increase of velocity. The object now is not experiencing an inertia because it is not in a constant velocity.